everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing the rapid fire book tag. Oh my god, I forgot for a second what I was doing. We are doing the rapid fire book tag because I was tagged by Alan over at the Library of Allenxandria to do this a couple weeks ago, maybe longer. So I'm just now getting around to it. I'm very excited to do it. I'm gonna link his video down below because I love it and he did it so well, so check it out. So we're just gonna go ahead and get into it. I'm supposed to answer these like really quickly, but we'll see. I tend to talk a lot. So ebook or physical? Physical. I definitely prefer reading physical books. The only time I read ebooks is in bed. Like if I can't have the reading light on because my husband's trying to sleep, I will open up an ebook and just read it before bed. But I usually fall asleep so quickly, so I never get through ebooks because I'm tired. Paperback or hardback? Hardback, because of how they look. I think they are so nice on the shelves, but I definitely prefer reading from a paperback. They're a lot easier to handle, and especially like the big floppy paperbacks. Like I'm not a huge fan of the UK paperbacks just because they like have very tight spines. I don't know what it is. I always have to like crack their spines. So even though I do love UK covers more usually, so I have quite a few of them. Online or in-store shopping? This is actually weird because I prefer online shopping only because I feel like I can't ever find the exact book I'm looking for when I'm going in store if I'm looking for a specific book, especially more like backlist books, because they usually have more of like new releases, or they have, you know, maybe only the paperback where I want the hardcover or vice versa. And then the other problem I usually find with in-store shopping is the fantasy sections are usually much smaller than the rest of the store, and sometimes they don't have like the first book in a series where it's like they just have the sequel and you're like, what the heck? So actually I prefer online shopping just because I can find everything I'm looking for, the editions I'm looking for, but I do love still going to the bookstore just to browse. I could live in a bookstore and be happy. Trilogies or series? I really don't have a preference for this one. I guess if I had to pick, maybe trilogies, just because that's what I've read the most of. I don't know. Heroes or villains? Villains, 100%. Always. I love villains. I love heroes that become villains. I like heroes that only think that they're the hero in their own mind, but they're actually the villain. I like anti-heroes. I like any villain story where the hero is actually the bad guy. I love it. A book you want everyone to read. So this one's gonna be surprising because my two favorites of all time, my favorite book of all time is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky, which is an adult horror, and my favorite fantasy of all time is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And both of these I would not blanket recommend to everybody. One, Imaginary Friend is not as beloved as it is on this channel. I love this book to pieces, but it actually has a pretty low score on Goodreads. I'm definitely in the minority loving it as much as I do. And it's horror where there's a certain person I would recommend this to. I wouldn't just like blanket recommend it to everybody. I always get really nervous when someone picks it up because I'm like, oh my god, I hope you don't hate it, but I think you're going to. And then The Way of Kings is a situation where it's so epic in nature and so humongous and just so much going on that I wouldn't recommend it to anyone and everyone if you haven't read fantasy before. Like, this is not the best place to start reading fantasy. So both of these are really hard to blanket recommend. So I'm instead going to recommend The Martian by Andy Weir for like a sci-fi fantasy recommendation, because this one I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. It is so amazing. The story, the character of Mark Watney, his survival story is just incredible to me. It's so accessible and I just read it so quickly. And so this is one I would blanket recommend to like anybody. Like I'd just be like, hey stranger, here you go, try The Martian. And then for non-sci-fi fantasy, I would recommend The Nightingale by Kristin, World War II historical fiction about two sisters. It is incredible very, very impactful. I love, love, love this book, and I think anyone can enjoy it. Like, no matter who you are, if you don't like historical fiction, if you've never read historical fiction ever in your life, I still would recommend this to you because it's just that good. It's such a good story. So even though my two favorites are not these two, these are two of my favorites, but they're not my all-time favorites, but these are the ones I would blanket recommend. I hope that makes sense. Recommend an underrated book. I would say the whole Winter Night trilogy is really, really underrated. I loved this trilogy. It's actually one of my all-time favorites now. And The Bear and the Nightingale was my least favorite in this series. I think it starts off pretty slow, but it's so beautifully written. And the character of Vasya is just one of my favorites ever, and it just gets better. Like, the second and the third books are unbelievable. 5 stars easy. So this series, I just don't see a lot of people talk about. I have seen it recommended quite a bit, but just not enough. It is so good. So I definitely think this is one of the more underrated series that I've loved. What is the last book you finished? Oh, Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Oh my god. There's so much to say about this book. I'm going to do a full dedicated review for it because I just have so much to say and so much to talk about. This one is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Spoiler alert, I loved it. It was amazing. I gave it 5 stars, but I'm gonna go into reasons why and who I would recommend this to, because again, this isn't one that I could blanket recommend to everybody. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews and I know why they're out there. So this is one that I really want to dive deeper into and talk about with you guys because there's a lot to say and a lot to unpack. And if you've read it, you probably know why it needs its own video. There's just a lot going on, and yes, it's very, very good. What is the last book you've bought? Ooh, Jade City by Fonda Lee. I have seen so many people love this book. I'm gonna name a couple. Joshana over at her channel, I'm gonna link it down below. She loves this book. Erin over at Booked and Busy loves this book. I'm gonna link her channel down below. Katie over at Brightness Katie Reads loves this book. I'm gonna link her channel down below. It is so hyped right now. I've seen so many people talking about it and loving it. I can't wait to read this one. And it's actually the optional buddy read pick for our Discord server. So if you want to join us in reading Jade City next month as an unofficial book club pick, I'm gonna link our Discord server down below because it's gonna be a good time. I have a good feeling about this one. I think I'm really going to love it. What is the weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark? I would say I used to travel a lot for work before this year, and when I traveled for work, a lot of times I forgot my bookmark, and I would have to use the little notepad paper that all of those hotel rooms come with. So I would just stick a little note paper into my book, and that was my bookmark. I've also used receipts and airline tickets. Used books, yes or no? Yes, I mean 100% yes. I actually have mostly bought used books this year, which is awesome. I'm lucky enough to live near not super close to, but close enough where I can go every couple months to a used bookstore who exchanges store credit for used books, and you can get new used books, and I love that store. And then I also, Thrift Books is amazing for finding used books and book deals. I've loved using Thrift Books. And then if I can't find used editions of the book I'm looking for at that bookstore or Thrift Books, Amazon has an option where you can look at used book copies, and usually it's organizations like Goodwill who are selling their used books on Amazon, so you can go and buy through Amazon and buy used books that way. And I've gotten a lot of great condition books that way. It's been awesome. So I actually really, really love getting used books, and I've been happy with, most of them have come in great condition. So yeah, if you are looking for used books, those are the ways I would recommend trying to find them. My top 3 favorite genres: fantasy, sci-fi, horror. Borrow or buy. Buy. It's so bad. I really need to start borrowing more. I'm gonna start borrowing more thrillers because I've noticed I'm not keeping thrillers around as much because if you know the twist in a thriller, you're not going to reread it, most likely. So those are ones that I'm going to try to shift into borrowing thriller books. And then the problem I have, here's the problem, is my mind is so bizarre. So when I borrow a book, I've done this in the past where I've borrowed a book and I've absolutely loved it, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like I want that book. And then I'll go online to buy it because I want a physical copy, and I'm like feeling all like guilty where it's like, oh, but I've already read it. Like, do I really need to buy it? Where I like guilt myself out of actually getting the physical copy of the book, and then I never get the physical copy. There are so many books that I've done this for. So unfortunately, that is how my mind works, and that for that reason, I buy books. It's bad. I need to stop. Characters or plot? Both. If a book is my favorite, it usually has a perfect blend of both. I usually don't like solely character focused or solely plot driven books. I like a good combination. But if I had to go with one or the other, I would prefer character driven. But if it's my favorite, it usually has a good plot too. Long or short books? Well, I am primarily a fantasy reader, so long, but I do love a good short book. Oh man, if fantasy books were shorter and packed just as big of a punch, that would be awesome. I would get through so many more. Long or short chapters? Short chapters, not even a discussion. Who would prefer long chapters? Who? If you prefer long chapters, leave it in the comments down below telling me why, because we agree to disagree. That's all I'm saying. Name the first 3 books you think of. Poppy War, Jade City, and Way of Kings. Because those are some that I've featured in this video. Books that make you laugh or cry. So I'm assuming this is like, do you prefer books that make you laugh or do you prefer books that make you cry? Cry. I prefer to be emotionally wrecked, and I do like humor in books, but usually they don't leave as much of an impact on me as much as like an emotional book would. So books that make me cry. Our world or fictional worlds? Fictional worlds. Our world is lame. Audiobooks, yes or no? Yes. But I have found that I can't listen to audiobooks for fantasy. I can listen to audiobooks for any other genre and love it. But for fantasy, because of the names and all the places, I just get too lost. So I have to physically read fantasy books. The one exception, any Joe Abercrombie novel, because Stephen Pacey is an unbelievable narrator. Have you ever judged a book by its cover? Yes. Yes, 100%. Yeah, I will buy books based off of their cover. And I will buy books where I don't like their cover, but it has to be a book that's recommended to me. Oh my God, so shallow. Book to movie adaptations or book to TV adaptations? For fantasy, I've been noticing the trend of TV adaptations, and I'm liking it. I think TV offers more opportunity for more world building, more character development, all the things. So I like the TV adaptations, but there's something about going to the movie theater and like seeing an amazing movie. Like Dune is gonna be such an awesome experience. I've never even read that book, but I really want to now because I just want to be in on it. And like that movie is going to be epic. So there's something about like the hype for a movie that is just unmatched. Like, it's so awesome. So yes, I like book to TV adaptations for fantasy books, but I get more hype over movies, if that makes sense. A movie or TV show you preferred to its book? Catching Fire in the Hunger Games trilogy. I thought that movie was spectacular and brought visuals to life that I could not even picture in my mind. That it was just amazing. And Breaking Dawn, the 4th book in the Twilight saga. And if you've read that book and you know the ending of the book versus the ending of the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It is much better in the movie. And there's not really much else where I would prefer the movie. Series or standalones. Series, I love spending time with characters that I fall in love with, but I love a good standalone. Some of my favorite books of all time are standalones, like all of my contemporaries and thrillers and horrors. Yes, I love a good standalone. So for fantasy though, series. So that was the not so rapid fire book tag. Sorry about that. I'm going to tag some new recent favorite booktubers that I have discovered. I'm going to tag Neeks. I'm going to tag Kayla from Books with Kayla. I'm so sorry if any of you have already done this tag. I will tag Erin from Booked and Busy, and I will tag Eric from Break Even Books. All of their channels are going to be linked down below. I love all of their channels, so go check them out. So that is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe. I release new videos every Monday and Thursday, and until next time, bye!